Ah, for just one time, I would take the Northwest Passage to find the hand of Franklin reaching for the Beaufort Sea, tracing one warm line through a land so wide and savage, and make a Northwest Passage to the sea.
So, chapter 139 dropped, and the ending leaves, for me at least, a sore feeling and a lot to be desired. There's a lot of things in character development and writing to be discussed, and why this ending is mediocre at best. But I haven't indulged in Medium as much to comment those things, so I'll leave them to someone more experienced. However, I have to criticize one thing the whole of Attack on Titan was leading up to, and was its main theme, the price and question of achieving freedom and peace through whatever means necessary. Eren is now seen as a genocidal maniac, which in part he is, and the plan to wipe out 80% of the population to show Eldians as heroes was flawed, let alone idiotic. The line, "thanks for being a mass murderer for us," is so, I don't know how to describe it, but it was the first time Attack on Titan made me laugh. Not intentionally, but because of how ludicrous the line was. The Titans are no more, and that is fine, but so is more than half of the human population. Many states don't exist anymore, and who is to blame for that but only Eren? But in here lies the problem. In the last few panels, we can see the time skip of 3 years after the so-called battle between heaven and earth. Population is displaced and refugees are numerous, as the panel shows many of them in camps, waiting for food. Eldian nation seems to go militaristic route now, but a militaristic nation bent on national pride is only a ticking time bomb in disguise. The only other opposition to Eldia now is again Marley, only it was left with some resemblance of government and military structure, weak but existing. From this, one of 3 scenarios can occur. An organization resembling something like United Nations or League of Nations is formed and imposes heavy demilitarization acts onto both nations, something akin to the Treaty of Versailles, but both sides have to implement it. Highly unlikely, as newfound national pride of Eldia would see implementation of such a treaty as a weak move and a hit to the eager's political power. Meanwhile, the inner turmoil in Marley would be prevalent, mostly due to the refugee crisis and poverty. Many factions arise, and many soldiers and people of Marley would probably sing something similar to "Where All the Roads End," rather than 55 days in Peking. Political parties akin to those that were seen in post-World War I Germany would see major popularity. Seeing as the Eldians arm up and continue to heavily militarize, Marley would start its own military investment strategy, which leads to an arms race. But I leave some hope for this one, as previously mentioned the organization will act as a middleman between these 2 nations, disagreements and conflicts. And as the world population recuperates, many nations would arise to challenge both Marley and Eldia, or maybe even act in a neutral and non-aligned manner. I think in Attack on Titan, the greatest culprit of all the death and destruction is Karl Fritz. He stands to lie to his people and to lock them behind walls as a play of a leader that is weak and afraid. Now, how can I say that a pacifistic state is more destructive than the new militaristic one? Simply put, Karl's refusal to fight is a good one, but he took it a bit too far. A full demilitarization of his nation would not have done anything good either. Rather, he could have passed a law or a constitutional act that outlawed Eldians as aggressors, outlawing war as a means to settle dispute, example being Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution. Keeping forces only in a self-defense purpose. Yes, it would lead to continual attempts of invasion and aggression by Marley, but eventually the strategic position of Paradis and its geography would wear Marley and the others down, and they would leave them alone for a time being. In that time, continuous efforts are made to show Eldia as a changed pacifist nation, not willing to involve in any aggressive action. Anyhow, let's say for about 5 to 10 years after Aaron's death, nothing really major happens. A few states are formed or rebuilt, like the one that looks like Turkey at the start of the final season. Aldea stands as a sole power player in the world, but it sees that her resources on Paradis are rather dwindling. The major fact why the war on Aldea was declared by Marley was the acquisition of the founding titan. Now when titans are no more, resources and land dictate the ability to fight and to develop. As mentioned above, Aldea started arming itself. Now it is time to flex some muscles. It would probably request some land from Marley and other nations. They would at first give in to these requests. Aldea would most probably act like Imperial Japan before World War II, and during it, trying to scramble pieces of land and natural resources to keep its effort going. But until it orchestrates an incident or deliberately attacks a nation, it would do it to great extent, or just bumps into a nation that stands its ground and doesn't give in to the requests of the Jaeger administration. But it's hard to say who would defend their beaches in this one. Marley as a state exists no more. It exists in conjunction with Aldea in a sort of Marley and Aldean Commonwealth, you may say. But this one is, I think, the one that the ending was aiming at, but would be the most unlikely. You see, after the genocide run that Aaron had, a lot of questions are gonna be asked. Who knew? Did someone try to stop it before it started? Was it the only way? And if someone goes out and tells the true story, the one Aaron told Armin through the dream sequence, it would be hard for anyone to believe. But with the help of some keen individuals, all of that would be swept under the rug in this scenario. Historia would be crowned as the Queen of Aldea and Marley, and would lead a highly technologically and economically powerful nation, stretching far. Eventually, and most probably, some Marleyan nationalists would try to secede from Aldea and try to mount an insurrection, but it would quickly be put down by now highly trained and adept Aldean forces. In the long run, as many Marleyans intermingle with Aldeans, I presume that Aldeans retained a higher population than that of Marley which remained after the rumbling. Many ethnic Marleyans would cease to exist, and a purely Aldean nation would stand. A fairly peaceful and a non-problematic scenario, but poised with many problems and trials to succeed successfully. Now, you may ask, how and why do I care so much, and that this is fiction and that anything can happen? Yes, but Attack on Titan's political allegory and its attention to detail and power vacuum struggles and geopolitical landscapes were always consistent and what made me love the series. But all of you that read the final chapter and decided you were satisfied, all power to you. You liked it, and as much as I wanted to, I didn't. That doesn't mean I gotta go out of my way to send death threats to the author.